This is the story of a fisherman, Nong Jose. Armed with his bugsai and fishing net, he sets out to sea every day with the hope of getting a good harvest. Day in and day out, he paddles, tireless and hopeful. His family depends on him to put food on the table, enough to last them for the day. The next day, he paddles again. Nong Jose hopes and dreams of a bright future for his family. Nong Jose has fears as he journeys into the sea, for the future brings about uncertainties. So goes Nong Jose, tirelessly paddling to achieve his dreams and realize his hopes for himself and his family. As the bugsai meets the waves, he thrusts himself fearlessly forward. In his journey through life, he knows he is not alone. Kindness exists in this world. Evident in the many happy faces of people around him. Today is a beautiful day. Tomorrow, even better. The future looks bright.
God Almighty, thank you for bringing us together during this unprecedented and challenging time. We ask that as we move forward as a community into the next normal, you give us the strength, patience, and wisdom needed to overcome these trials and rise above the pandemic. We pray for our present-day heroes who are on the front lines fighting against the virus. Those who have become sick and those who have died, may they have eternal rest. For those of us who are holding on to hope, please give us the grace to never give up. Dearest God, heal our land. Amen.
Maayong hapon kanatong tanan, and thank you for joining us here today for episode number 6 of Rafi's Restart webinar series, which aims to provide practical information that will help our community not only to survive but to thrive in the new normal. So let me start off by introducing myself. Again, my name is Jackie Clavin and I work for the Ramona Boites Foundation Incorporated, also known as Rafi. This webinar series is in line with Rafi's vision of touching people, shaping the future, because in the series we discuss various topics relevant to our lives in the new normal. We want to empower our community by connecting virtually with experts so that we can become more aware and more confident as we now move forward post-pandemic. So I am so excited for this topic today. And if you are a fan of travel, if you are a Laagan, I think you will be very excited too. September is actually tourism month, so we decided to focus today, kick off the month with a topic on how air travel will look like moving forward into the new normal. So we all know that COVID-19, the pandemic, has really put a stop on all of our travel goals and plans for the year. I know for me, I had to cancel a lot of the trips that I was looking forward to, but that was, of course, for our safety and in line with the governments around the world's travel restrictions put in place to control the pandemic. So that in turn, that has put the world's major airports and a lot of tourism destinations around the world, Philippines included, tourism has really come to a halt. But luckily, as moving forward into the new normal, we see things are starting to slowly open up. And in fact, Cebu City, it was just declared, is already in modified general community quarantine. So we're hoping optimistically that moving forward, we can look forward to being able to go out and visit some tourism destinations after quite a few months of having to stay at home. So our episode today is entitled Ready, Jet Set, and Go, Traveling in the New Normal. And so today we're really focusing on what air travel is going to look like moving forward and how we can ensure that we arrive at our destination safe and sound amidst the new protocols that are in place. For today's episode, we have partnered with GMR Mega Wide Cebu Airport Corporation. They manage Mactan Cebu International Airport, as well as Casa Gorordo Museum, in order to reach out to all of our followers who are excited to get back in the swing of things and go ahead and start traveling again. So if you are tuned in today, after several months of being in quarantine, I would like to now ask you, when allowed, when everything is okay, when allowed, where is the first place in Cebu that you would like to visit, right? For me personally, I've been quarantining in Cebu City and haven't been able to really go out into the province. And I really miss the outdoors and a lot of the natural destinations we have here in Cebu. So I know I have my choice, my answer, but we would like to know from our audience members, where would you like to go first when you're now allowed to? So how this will work is you can log on to menti.com. The link is also going to be in the Zoom chat box and on Facebook. And you can then type in this code 159390 and enter in your destination of choice. We want to look at Cebu because we're based in Cebu, but if you're still looking in the Philippines, you can also go ahead and type that in. We all have different travel goals, so no problem with that. But for me, mine would definitely be Camotes. I've been wanting to go back to Camotes for a long time. I haven't gotten to travel there, so I'm really looking forward to when it's safe and quarantine restrictions have eased up. That will be my first local tourism destination at the top of my list. So as I mentioned earlier, Casa Gorordo is also one of our partners for today's events. They're one of Rafi's programs under our Culture and Heritage Unit. And if you're interested in learning more about them and how you can experience Cebuano culture even amidst the pandemic, stay tuned for more information later on in the episode. So we'll go ahead and get started with the guidelines for our Zoom webinar. We'll go over some of the buttons and functions. If you have registered ahead of time, thank you so much. You can still register now. The link will be provided in the Facebook comment box, so that if you register, you will receive a e-certificate later on. So through email as certification that you attended today's webinar. So, but if you are with us in the Zoom room, I'll just go over some guidelines, right? So firstly, please keep your microphone on mute the whole time so that as not to distract from the speaker or to interrupt. You can see the button there in the lower left-hand corner. Please also keep your video and camera button off so that you will also not interrupt or distract the speaker. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and chat them through using the chat feature in Zoom, and you can also go ahead and you can react, right? So if you're watching in Facebook, you can chat through the comment box. You can give a thumbs up or a heart and react. But if you're in Zoom, you can go ahead and use the Zoom chat. Next, you can also, to summarize, keep your microphone on mute during the webinar as well as your camera off. You can use the reactions in the chat box or on Facebook to encourage our speakers. No, it is a little bit nerve-wracking to be here in front of the camera. And then questions, we will have a question and answer session later on. We will get to as many as possible, right? So you can go ahead and just type your questions in the Zoom chat box or in the Facebook comment box. We will get to as many as possible during the question and answer portion after our speaker has finished. We'll have time for that later on. So next, to move forward, I would like to thank our other partner for this afternoon, GMR Megawide Cebu Airport Corporation. They manage the Mactan Cebu International Airport. And I would like to also introduce our speaker today and thank him so much for his willingness to share his time and his expertise with all of us. I would like to call on Mr. Ravishankar Saravu. He serves as the Chief Commercial Officer for GMR Megawide Cebu Airport Corporation, and he and his team have been very busy the past few months communicating what are the new standards and protocols in the Mactan Airport that they have, put in place to ensure the safety of passengers as well as their employees, right? So, Ravi, are you there? Thank you so much for joining us today, this afternoon.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, so we're looking so forward to your presentation. Again, I would like to remind the audience, if there are any questions for Ravi during his presentation, go ahead and feel free to chat that in the Facebook comment section or the Zoom chat box, and we will get to that later on. So without further ado, Ravi, you can go ahead and take it away. Thank you again for coming this afternoon.
Thank you, Jackie. Hope I am audible. Thank you everyone for joining this session. I hope you can see the slides. We are still in the middle of an unprecedented crisis, which has not been seen by many generations. There are two problems hitting us very hard at this moment of time. One, the pandemic itself. The second, the pandemic of fear, and rightfully so. Now, the impact of it has been across all the industries. It is not just the aviation industry. It's impacted the macroeconomic parameters of a country. It has impacted everyone. Of course, the travel and tourism had taken the hit, maybe maximum at this point of time. I won't spend much time on these issues. I rather straight move to what is going to be the new normal in the airport. Now, the outcome of this pandemic as we move forward is something that we can only speculate at this moment. However, the way everyone is doing the business is going to undergo a major change. So is the airport business. I am sure most of you would not have got an opportunity to go through the airport at this point of time due to the pandemic, or maybe some of you have seen the terminal in the new way. But going forward, whenever you visit the airport, you will definitely see something different in the airport. There are many guidelines and protocols which are either issued by the government of Philippines or Department of Health, or we have also implemented even measures which is beyond the requirement to instill the confidence of the travelers. I will take to some of these changes in the terminal so that you will be clear on this when you go to the airport next time. In both the terminals, Terminal 1 and 2, as soon as you enter the terminal, you will see disinfectant foot baths placed at all the terminal entrances and all the terminal entrances. The check-in, there is a barricade which separates the check-in agent and the traveler. There is a plexiglass screens implemented in all check-in counters so that there is no spread of virus when someone is interacting with the check-in agent. All the queuing places, you will see a distance which is required, the social distance which is required for everyone to follow. You will see these foot markings in all the queuing areas. What you see is basically the domestic check-in. Everyone will have to follow the foot marking which has been provided. This is in the immigration counters in international terminal. You will also see some similar measures which are implemented everywhere in the terminal, be it in escalators, be it in elevators. Passengers will have to follow the social distancing measures. The food and beverage outlets is going to be completely different. You have to certainly have to follow certain pathways inside the food and beverage terminal outlets. There are designated seating areas which you cannot sit. There are certain designated seats only where you can sit, so that social distancing measures are in place. There is always a fear of spread of virus when you use the menu cards in the restaurants. So what we have done in the airport is provision of QR codes. Using your smartphone, you can just scan these QR codes so that menu will appear in your smartphones, so that you don't really need to hold any of the menu cards. We are also working on a payment using the QR code itself, maybe next few months. But at least for the time being, you can also pay your money to these restaurants through GCash, PayMaya, or any of such options which are basically contactless. There are countless sanitizers. Again, these are contactless. They're provided all over the terminal, so that the people don't find it difficult to sanitize their hands as they move across the terminal. There are procedures highlighted through ample signages everywhere in the terminal, something which will keep reminding the passengers as they move through the airport. You might see in every establishment the establishment checking the temperatures of the people who are entering. In an airport, which is a mass scale where many people move in, what we have provided is thermal cameras, which helps in detection of fever or high temperatures. You don't really need to stand. You just simply can move forward in the terminal, and these thermal cameras automatically record the temperature and also notify if there is anybody with high temperature entering the terminal. Now, this has been provided at the entry points. This has also been provided in the arrivals, be it domestic arrival or international arrivals. We have also used a lot of technology in both the terminals, so that we can implement all these protocols without much hassles. As you enter the terminal, you'll have to show your tickets. There has to be an interaction with the security agent who is standing in the gates. What we have done is basically a provision of cameras. You can actually interact with the security agent using these cameras and screens, so that there is no close interaction with the security agents as you enter the terminal. Even the check-in process has been made easy. As you all know, there is a self-check-in kiosk in the airport. If you want to avoid using the check-in desks, you can always check in using the self-check-in kiosk. Now, we have gone one step forward. Using your smartphone, you can actually scan the QR codes, and this whole check-in screen replicates in your smartphone, and then you can use it for check-in process, as you can see in these photographs. The whole process from check-in till boarding can be contactless. Wherever there is necessary, there are QR code readers available, so that you don't really need to interact or exchange papers with anybody as you complete the process of boarding. We have also provided virtual help desk now in the terminal. Basically, you can talk to a help desk service provider using these screens virtually, but it's going to be a live interaction. You can ask for questions, you'll get your answers, but the person or the help desk service provider is not exactly sitting in the same place. So it's not just in the airport, it's also beyond the airport. You also see the social distancing measures in airport taxis and also other the transportation service providers. Now, these are the measures which we have taken in the airport, so that we follow the regulatory requirements. At the same time, it also gives confidence, and there is absolutely surety that the virus don't spread to the terminal. Now, if you remember back in sometimes in April, May, you must have read in the newspapers that there are hundreds of thousands of Filipinos, especially overseas Filipino workers or returning overseas Filipinos, are waiting to come to the country, but they are unable to do so because of the capacity constraints. That's when the Department of Transportation and Mactan Cebu International Airport Authority thought of putting up a COVID testing lab in the airport. So we initiated a implementation of COVID testing lab sometime in May, And we implemented a COVID lab in the airport in a record around 5 months time. Sorry, 5 weeks time. I think we are one of the few airports in the world to have such a system. Maybe even we are the first in the airport, first in the world to have such a facility in the airport terminal itself. What we did, we tied up with the local service provider Prime Care to come up with the COVID lab. This was built by us according to the Department of Health and WHO guidelines, using the best of the equipments. It uses Roche machines, and it was certified by the RITM and DOH in 21st June 2020. Now this changes the protocol again when you arrive in international airport. So whoever is wishing to travel to the Philippines through Mactan Cebu International Airport will have to again follow certain guidelines. One, the traveler will have to register himself or herself before even checking in the original destination. The traveler will also have to have a pre-booked hotel room so that upon arrival he straight goes into the hotel. Once he or she registers himself herself in this website, the traveler gets a unique traveler reference number with a barcode. So that becomes an important essential for somebody to travel to the airport. So once they come to the airport in Cebu, so they will have to pass through the verification counters where the passenger will be screened, or the initial screening of passengers will be done, and the verification of the information provided will be done. Once that is done, the traveler, once completes the immigration process, he or she has to give a swab sample. We have provided 12 manned swabbing booths in the arrival area of Terminal 2. It is operational for 24 hours. There are also one-stop solution. WOA, Marina, DOT counters, or the hotel agents are having their presence in the airport terminal, so that the traveler finds it very easy as soon as he or she arrives in the airport. So as you can see in this graph, once this picture, once the passenger arrives and completes the immigration process, he or she straight away goes to, depending on the type of passenger, if it's OFW, he has to go to the OFW counter, and after that, basically goes to give a swab sample. If he's not a OFW, returning overseas Filipinos, then he or she will have to make the payment for testing and then go to provide swabbing sample. Now, once the swab sample is provided, the person can go and collect the bags and then transport it to the hotels. So the whole transportation is taken care by the hotels. Now, the passenger will have to get quarantined in the hotel till the test results come in. So we provide the test results within 24 to 48 hours. I'm really not sure if anybody else, provides the test results so fast. In fact, if you look at this slide, in the last few months of our services, till around 6th of July, our average processing time for this sample was just 19 hours. And we kept on improving. If I look at the data till date, our average processing time is just 13 hours. So a passenger need not spend in the quarantine generally not more than 24 hours. In fact, that has reduced the cost of travel, especially paying for the hotels while waiting for the results to come in. Now, in the last couple of months, starting from June to August, we have processed more than 24,000 passengers. In fact, we have helped more than 24,000 Filipinos to come back home during this pandemic. At the same time, it also helped the hotel business and the local transportation business. It also helped the local restaurants to get some business in these difficult times. Okay, I'll go to the next section, which is basically the restart. Once we implemented the testing facilities, we started international terminal operations back in 19 June. For that matter, we never closed the airport. There was always an operation of repatriation flights, which was happening even before that. But from 19 June, we started taking the commercial flights in Terminal 2. And similarly, Terminal 1, once the Cebu city went to the GCQ, we started accepting domestic flights as well. However, we are far from our full capacity. I'm sure most of you know that we used to handle around 30 to 35,000 passengers in a day. And at this point of time, of course, we are only handling around 2,000 passengers a day. But it's improving slowly. At this point of time, I think our priority is to connect as many as domestic and international destinations possible, so that we can help the stranded individuals can go back home, or vice versa, they can come back home. We can also help the overseas Filipino workers, returning Filipinos, to come back home. If you can see this chart, at this point of time, we connect around 9 domestic destinations. We briefly had to, briefly, the Cebu to Manila flights were cancelled because Manila going back to ECQ earlier, but now with Manila back to GCQ, we have that connections back. So we connect to Clark, Manila, Tacloban, Bacolod, Dipolog, Cagayan de Oro, Davao, Zamboanga, and General Santos at this point of time. Now again, if you go back, we used to connect 30 to 35 domestic destinations at one point of time, and we have reached a 9, and I'm sure we'll slowly get back all our the original connections. Now these are very limited flights at this point of time. It also has a lot of protocols to be followed. Of course, every LGU has a different requirements, and travelers will have to really follow these requirements. We are also slowly getting back our international connections. As you can see in this slide, we are now got almost 7 international connections back. Again, in a normal pre-COVID level, we were connected to around 19 international destinations. We are slowly getting back our international connections. Qatar Airways is flying daily, something which we could convince an airline to fly even during this difficult times, which of course immensely helping the returning Filipinos, especially from Europe and part of Middle East. Jinair is doing 1 flight per week. Silker is doing two flights per week. Asiana is also doing 1 flight per week, which again helps the travelers from North America to come back to Philippines. Jeju Air is also currently doing 1 flight per week. Emirates has started its operations back with the 2 flights per week. This connection is direct now. It is not linked with the Clark at this point of time. Cathay Pacific has just started its flights from today with the 2 flights per week. Again, the people from North America can now use these services to come back to Philippines. And similarly, EVA Air is also starting its flights from 18th September. Now, this is very slow process. At this point of time, as you all know, the tourism is not yet open. The Cebu city and Lapu-Lapu and Mandawi city, and of course Cebu province already being in MGCQ. We hope that tourism will slowly reopen. There are many other things which various countries tried earlier. There were many travel bubbles which were tried by many countries worldwide. Something which has not been that successful, but something which we can also look forward to open certain routes using travel bubbles. There are going to be new protocols. I'm sure this is the protocol which has to be followed everywhere. I just explained on the the domestic and international protocols to be followed in Cebu Airport. But for people who are going abroad, there are different protocols to be followed. Certain countries have COVID testing requirements before they even board the flights. For example, if you're traveling to Dubai, a traveler need to have negative COVID certificate taken, I believe, 96 hours before they board the flight. Now, the airport provides services for those people who are traveling abroad to do their COVID testing in the terminal. Now, again, we have come up with a protocol to do that. At least 2 days in advance, passenger come to the terminal after pre-registering and give the swab sample and get the results in 24 to 48 hours. With these results, again, the traveler can actually board the flight. Now, this is not mandatory for all the departing passengers. This, however, is some traveler has to follow the mandatory requirements of their destination countries. Now, once this COVID is over, or even during the COVID, I think the traffic is not going to come back to the original levels quickly. The IATA had come up with a certain forecast a few weeks back, and their forecast says that we will get our 2019 traffic levels only by 2024. So that's around 3 to 4 years away from now. Now, that's an average calculation, Cebu not necessarily need to follow that. So we can, as a stakeholders, can do several things to get our traffic or tourism back as quickly as possible. There has to be sense of safety for travelers from their door to door, from the time they start from their house, reach their destination, and then come back home. So all the stakeholders in the whole chain, starting from the transportation to their hotels or their airport or the airlines, everyone has to work to ensure that the traveler gets a sense of safety. Now, that alone is not sufficient. The destination has to be ready with the new protocols. At least for Cebu, I think all the LGUs, Department of Tourism, they are putting their efforts. They're working very hard to make the destination ready with the new protocols, so that it can take the tourists as and when it's permitted to do so. We are also working with the Department of Tourism and also various stakeholders in the tourism chain, so that we are ready to take the tourists as and when the government allows them to do so. So I think that's basically the presentation at this point of time. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to take it from you.
Hi, Ravi. Thank you so much for your presentation. No, it was very informative, and it's nice to see GMR and Mactan Airport really taking the lead, in terms of helping us get back to normal, especially our tourism industry here in Cebu. No, that's really a big economic driver for us Cebuanos. So we are very interested in how we can move forward to that as quickly as possible. No, so there were already a few questions, but before we get to the questions, Ravi, I want to go back to the question we had earlier in the beginning. Where locally, in the meantime, well, we cannot really, international tourism and even domestic tourism is not really available at the moment, but once these quarantine restrictions start to lift, hopefully we can start to visit some of our places here in Cebu again. So if we can flash the results from the Mentimeter that we asked earlier on in the episode, when allowed, where is the first place in Cebu that you would like to visit? We have some people that said Camotes, Ronda. Some people want to stay at home. No, that's okay. Bantayan, Badyan, home of Kawasan, Hinatilan, which also has Inambakan waterfalls. The southern Cebu, very beautiful. I'm biased because I'm also from southern Cebu. Simala, no, that's also very important to us because Cebuanos are very religious. We would like to say thank you for protection. Camotes, some people said Thailand, some people still want to go abroad. That's okay. There's still those travel goals, Siargao and Ronda, no? So thank you all for those that answered. Hopefully, I think those LGUs, maghinay sila open later on, right? As they need to make sure that they have the correct safety protocols in place now to make the experience enjoyable for the visitors, as well as to protect the local population as well. So thank you all of those that answered. So we'll move on to our questions. Ravi, again, thank you for your presentation. I think one of the first questions that I have, right, in the Philippines, we have a joke that about the Burr months. So today is September 1, which officially means, unofficially means it's Christmas season, right? So I wanted to ask if there at the airport, you already have some idea, if by the last quarter or by December, the holidays, will people be able to travel, even domestically to go and visit their families, or what is your projection for that?
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. I think, the worldwide, many have come up with the various projections on this, and it's something, the projections have always failed. But I think, we have spent now quite a bit of amount of time understanding this virus. I'm sure, the going forward things should be better. What every studies have come up with is that, it's going to be the domestic tourism which will recover faster than international tourism, because the crossing the border will definitely have much more the restrictions, and also I think the confidence of people to get back their confidence, I'm sure they will take much longer time. So what we expect at least is that the domestic tourism should definitely be back. Now, we know that the Cebu city has done very well in the last few months, and Cebu province has done very well in terms of controlling the virus. Definitely, that is an indication that things might open up by that time. But this will depend on two factors. One, when is government will think that it is we are ready to ease the restrictions and allow the tourism. That's the number one. I think the lesser the restriction, I think the better for the tourism. If there are many restrictions, I'm sure the tourism demand will definitely not pick up. But the second, which is very important, is that whether the confidence of travelers will be back, which I think where we all will have to work together to, one, ensure that all the protocols in place and people get the confidence, and the second, that we communicate about it so that people get the confidence as well. So we are hopeful that that definitely domestic tourism should be back by then, and some amount of international maybe by that time.
Yes, that would be really exciting, no? Because I think a lot of people, especially after 2020 has been such a year, they would really appreciate being able to at least end the year, spending time with their friends and family in their respective provinces. So that's a good point also, Ravi, that you mentioned. This is not solely the problem of the airport, or it's not solely the problem of the government in terms of recovering the industry. It's really all of the stakeholders having to come together and work together to put those safety protocols in place, and then be able to communicate and market that also to people outside now, to restore the confidence that Cebu is ready to accept tourism with open arms, while maintaining other social distancing and all that. I'll take a question that was from online. It was asking about the swab test, which you mentioned, that there are swab tests with a 24 to 48 hour turnover time. And then this person is asking if the testing is free. If not, how much is it? And is it compulsory I would ask also, I know it seems to be mandatory for those coming from abroad, but what about those domestic passengers? Are they also expected to take the swab test upon arrival?
So on the first point, international, it's mandatory in the arrivals. That's basically the government regulation at this point of time. It is, for overseas Filipino workers, the testing fees is taken care by WOWA, or Overseas Welfare Association of Philippines. But rest of them, they have to pay upon arrival, or they can always pay online even before they come in. So the charges for the testing is in fact one of the least in the country. But when it comes to domestic, the testing, we don't provide the domestic arrival testing at this point of. We don't provide the services of testing the arriving passengers at this point of time, and it is also not mandatory for all type of travelers. There is the certain guidelines which Cebu City has come up with a few days back, which does need the COVID testing for certain kind of travelers, which the traveler need to have much before before they arrive here. So they basically have to get the negative COVID certificate when they come from Manila, before they take their flight. Now, this is not for all the destinations, all the origin airports, and it is not for all the type of travelers. What we do is that in our Facebook account, we keep publishing these requirements regularly, so that travelers are aware of the requirements. And of course, these guidelines are also changing rapidly, because this is a very dynamic situation. I think the traveler will have to refer the various communication which comes from the NGOs.
Yes, so yeah, because there was also another person asking, do we still need a barangay clearance? So what you're saying, Ravi, is that the passenger now has a responsibility to check with their destination, right? What
Yes.
are the requirements to be accepted? So it's not like before that you can just book your ticket, bring an ID, and then you can jet set and enjoy. Now you really have to check what is your destination, and depending on that, maybe you have to arrange your accommodation ahead of time, as well as other requirements that you need to bring. So that brings me to my next point. Your presentation had a lot of focus on the international, but for those that are, for example, going to different parts of the country in the domestic terminal or arriving, from Manila, um, they do they have to do that? I mean, for example, like what if they don't have the proper documents, but they're already in the Cebu airport? What would happen to them now? Do they get sent back, or how does that work? Or what role does the airport play in facilitating those kinds of arrivals?
Yeah, I mean, most of these check-ins are done during the check-in process by airlines, depending on the requirement. So, the people definitely will have to follow, the LGU requirements, and if they don't have those papers, I think they'll be denied boarding. So it's very important that
Okay.
the passengers basically keep following these requirements. Which generally we provide even in our Facebook page, but it's also provided various LGU websites so that they don't really get denied while boarding.
Okay, so upon check-in, the
Yeah.
papers and documents are asked ahead of time. That's good, no? So it's really, it's the responsibility is now passed on to passengers, not to be safe and to be responsible in terms of gathering all of that information. I also have a question, Ravi, about you were mentioning that there are a lot of contactless modes of payment now in the airport. One of the questions I have is for international flights. I know that the airport collects a terminal fee, and then the DOT or TSA also collects the travel tax. So are there options also for contactless payments for those required fees?
So as far as terminal fees is considered, back in 2019 September, we integrated the terminal fees into the ticket. So the
Okay.
people who have booked tickets post September 2019, which most of them would be, are basically there is no need for them to pay the terminal fees in the terminal. So it's already integrated. So that requirement is completely gone. The travel tax, yes, we are working to come up with certain non-contact payments, but at this point of time, there is none. But maybe shortly we will come up with a solution for that as well.
Okay, so yeah, that's good to know. And then how would you say in terms of going internationally, what is the timeline for that? Because I know you mentioned by the last quarter, it's likely, as the quarantine statuses continue to go down, but what about international travel? What is the outlook? I know that there are some flights already, but that's already operating at a much lower capacity than normal. So when do you think, what is your healthy projection for Mactan Cebu in terms of kind of going back to international flights? Because I know Cebu is really connected. We're really we've become a travel hub for Southeast Asia. So when do you project that we're going to be at that level again?
Yeah, from a Cebu's point of view, today the reason for travel is very limited, right? So the passengers can only travel if they're going for work, especially the overseas Filipino workers, or they're coming back home, or any Filipinos basically coming back home. We predominantly had only arriving passengers for last few months, and our departing passengers is slowly picking up. That means, there are many Filipinos are going back to work in various countries. There are no other reason for travel is as such allowed. The people cannot go for leisure, nor the travelers can come back. Travelers can come to Cebu for leisure at this point of time. In a regular scenario, Cebu is heavily dependent on tourism. All our international traveler, predominantly the traveler's profile is basically for tourism, and of course there are other reasons for travel. So what we have to hope is that we really completely get the control on this virus, and the tourism opens up. That is only when I think we can see the international travel coming back. But having said that, we have to be ready for that day. That means whenever the government makes it permitted activity, I think we have to ready with all, the destinations, for example. We can always, they like the way you're talking about museum, but we can always, identify the travel destinations, which people might find it safer. To give an example, I just give an example. Let's take the case of, let's say, Bantayan. I think someone even mentioned the Bantayan name
Yes.
in your survey. So, it is much less crowded. The people might think, people might feel much safer to go to a place which is much less crowded, and they can enjoy, the open skies and the beaches there. So we can always market such a destination so that, it's a win-win. The travelers also feel safe, and at the same time, the industry also gets back to business. So I think the various innovative ideas the industry stakeholders will have to come back to get the tourism. I think the starting point, of course, the tourism becoming a permitted activity, and even though the IATA had come up with the projection saying that only by 2024 we'll get back our 2019 level of the tourism or the traffic numbers. I think we can definitely do better, because Cebuanos are known for their entrepreneurial
Yes.
so we can definitely get back much earlier.
Yes, I hope so. And so, since travel for tourism or leisure purpose is not yet allowed, right? So hopefully this is the time that Cebuanos tourism stakeholders can really come together to work on those things like the safe travel bubble package, right? No, so that visitors, puhon, as we say in Cebuano, will feel confident when they come to Cebu. So Ravi, there's a few more questions. They're a little bit more specific, right? I think one is, it says, Qatar has one of the world's highest infection per 1 million population. Are there extra precautions from travelers from that destination coming into Cebu?
Yeah, I mean, irrespective of the origins that they are coming from, everyone is tested. Every traveler who is coming to international terminal is tested for COVID. So if they are found COVID negative, it's only when they are released from the hotels. Till then, they will get quarantined, in the various facilities. So that takes care of that concern. But
Yes.
Recently the Department of Transportation added one more requirement for the travelers. That's the mandatory use of face shields. So the traveling within the aircraft is safe because of the use of HEPA filters. So virus don't really circulate in the air. Once they come to the terminal, we already have the social distancing measures, and they also will be wearing mask and face shield. And of course, then they're tested. So all these measures basically takes care of that particular concern.
Right. So regardless of their destination of origin, they will all undergo the same process upon arrival, which is already up, on par. It's a really high standard. And then just to clarify, because someone asked, Ravi, can you comment on when you expect OFWs and other Filipinos abroad to be able to travel freely to and from the Philippines? I think this is, you already answered, that the majority of people that have been accommodated by the airport in the past 3 months have actually been returning OFWs.
Absolutely. I mean, even if somebody is going back to work, now we have, the airlines which are flying for various destinations. Now, only thing, the traveler has to ensure that, their final destination accepts, the travelers from the Philippines. And what are the requirements for those travelers to enter that country? I think these two, the traveler will have to ensure. I think at this point of time, there are enough airlines like Qatar, Emirates, Silk Air, Asiana. I think these basically connect, most part of the world. So travelers can actually reach most of the destinations that they want.
Yes, and that's actually, we've been talking about tourism as being really important to Cebu, but the airports are actually, a hub that transports our OFWs, which is a huge economic contributor, so that's also very important, right? And I think we have one last question is travel going to the US allowed already?
I believe it is already allowed. The travelers, of course, can go back to US at this point of time. But again, what I understand is that the non-essential travel is not allowed by Philippines government at this point of time. But otherwise, it's allowed. So again, the requirements for somebody to enter that might differ. Even it might differ even within US state to state. Something which again has to be checked and followed accordingly.
Right. So, but there are no direct flights to the US from Cebu. So they would have to go to another airport such as Incheon in
Hong
Korea,
Kong,
or
we have Cathay Pacific flying to Cebu already, and we have the Asiana flying here, and we soon will have EVA Air also flying to Cebu. So yeah, they can transit in any of these airports.
yes. Okay, and so I have one final question for you, Ravi. Now, thank you so much for answering the others, and thank you for those that asked. But my final question for you will be, if there was one takeaway message for all of our viewers that are watching here on Zoom and watching on Facebook, what would that takeaway message be with regards to traveling in the new normal?
Yeah, I mean, I hope the worst is over, or at least we won't be spending the same amount of the time what we faced so far. But of course, in the short to medium term, the traveling wouldn't be the same. There are going to be a lot of the restrictions. There are going to be a lot of protocols to be followed. But at the same time, the traveling is definitely safe as long as you follow the protocols. So I think we will definitely get back. This will pass, and I think with our resilience, I'm sure we'll get back to the tourism on the business back in Cebu.
Yes, that's really good to know. I know that Mactan Airport has done so much, to ensure that the airport is, above and beyond the requirements and standards needed in the new normal. No, from all of your pictures and from what you've said, it sounds like the process and everything is really going smoothly and going well. All the new infrastructure is in place for that to happen. But I want to emphasize that us as travelers, we also have the responsibility to be a safe traveler and ensure that we are coming with the proper equipment in terms of, face mask, face shield, ensure that we're following the social distancing protocol, ensure that we're bringing the required documents and everything. But it's very heartwarming to know that Mactan has really taken the lead in terms of that and has been proactive, right, in terms of this. So again, I would like to thank you so much, Ravi. I think I learned a lot, and I hope that our viewers tuned in have learned a lot as well, straight from your mouth as a Chief Commercial Officer of Mactan Airport. Again, daghang salamat, Ravi, for the time that you shared this afternoon.
Thank you, Jackie. It was our pleasure. I think we thank you for giving us an opportunity so that we can communicate to the larger public on the measures that we've taken and also with the various the options which are available for the travelers.
Yeah, so I hope that we'll be seeing each other soon, Ravi, at the airport, because I know I miss traveling as well. And I hope that, all of this will normalize, or even though it may not be the same, hopefully it will, we'll be able to adapt and get the hang of being in the new normal. So daghang salamat again, Ravi, and have a good afternoon. But before we leave, for the rest of our audience, I would like now to focus on the Casa Gordo Museum, which has also co-sponsored this webinar episode. For those of us watching, we may not be able to go abroad and fulfill our travel goals or go, to Batanes or wherever other beautiful destination in the Philippines, but that's not a problem because we have a bunch of very world-class attractions here in Cebu that we can, even if we've already been there, it's nice to revisit. So one of these is actually the award-winning Casa Gordo Museum, which is located in the historic district of Parian, Cebu City. So Casa Gordo is the ancestral home of the Gordo family and has been converted into a museum so that you can now experience what life in a prominent Cebuano family was like in the 1800s. We are really proud to share that Casa Gordo Museum was recently recognized to be in the top 10% of attractions worldwide, in the whole globe. We're in the top 10% as a TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice awardee, making it a favorite destination among locals and international guests alike. So surely this is really a source of pride for us Cebuanos. While the museums still closed due to the restrictions of the quarantine, that's really not a problem, because if you're really interested in getting to know and connect with your Cebuano culture and heritage, you can do so. You can experience, they have an online exhibit. They are also hosting monthly webinars of various topics. Now, in the past, they've done one with an insight on Visayan pop music. They also had one about surat, which was the early ancient form of Visayan writing. The next webinar for September, in line with the tourism month, will be cultural tourism in the new normal. So if you are interested in keeping updated with that, you can go to their Facebook, Casa Gorordo Museum, and like and follow them now to keep up to date. They also release a lot of content videos which showcase local tour destinations and local culture here in Cebu. So if you are looking for that, it's a really a good time to connect with your Cebuano culture. So please like and follow them on Facebook. Again, we hope that you enjoyed today's session. We would like to know what you thought. So please take the time to answer our evaluation form so we can even improve in the future. Now, we will be posting the evaluation link in the Facebook comments, and we will also email it out to those that register. So kindly provide us your feedback, because we will use that moving forward with our episode. You can also like and follow the Ramona Boitis Foundation Incorporated on Facebook so that you can keep up to date with our organization's achievement or our programs, as well as stay tuned for the next Restart webinar episode. So in line with Rafi's vision of touching people and shaping the future, we hope that this session today has made you more aware of what we can do amidst this pandemic and how we can move forward confidently together into the new normal. So thank you again so much for joining, and remember to stay safe.
It all began with the heart of a Cebuano, of a man with a great sense of the common good, who identified with the plight of his fellow men and responded to the needs of his society. The man who built the foundation called Ramon Aboitiz. Don Ramon Aboitiz knew of the Cebuanos' need for monuments to remind them of their noble roots and which should lead them to a glorious future. It was his son, Eduardo, however, who would pursue his father's heritage and articulate the city's imminent historical amnesia in its lack of legacy. Thus, Don Eduardo Aboitiz acquired one of the historically significant houses in Parian, the old district of Cebu. He also ensured that with the purchase of Casa Gorordo, the traditions of the house be continued.
In 1976, Senior Eddie Aboitiz and my mother, Cesaria Gorordo Revilles, had an agreement to preserve the house, to maintain the traditions. The traditions are on January, the Senog, after the Fiesta of Señor Santo Niño. During Lent, the procession of the second fall of Jesus and Veronica. And on June, that is the procession also of St. John the Baptist. And on December, to set up the Belen.
The house took a life of its own. The spirit of Rafi's founders, Don Ramon and Don Eddie, continued to pulsate through the years as it went through several transformations. As it nurtured the hopes and aspirations of the foundation of touching people, shaping the future.
Casa Gorordo Museum is the centerpiece of Rafi's advocacy, promoting the preservation of heritage and culture in Cebu. We used to be, in the past many years, the galleries of the Casa Gorordo Museum became a place or a venue where most of the upcoming artists. We also hosted some of those exhibits coming from other countries, would like also to promote their own culture to the Cebuano community. And then there are many other initiatives that we also have, like also training, some of the stakeholders in heritage, like the tour guide, the taxi driver, especially those who are rendering frontline services in tourism. The lower part of the Casa Gorordo Museum became the office also of the Ramon Aboitiz Foundation. So in times when we have some disaster, we always use the Casa Gordo Museum Garden, as a place where we are packing our relief packs, that will be distributed to the different beneficiaries or affected families of disaster.
And as it became one of the most visible and leading centers of culture and heritage in Cebu and in the Visayas.
It is a tool, an avenue to which people of diverse sectors could converge, and a lot of museums like us, aspiring museums, would want to tap or at least be inspired by what Rafi was doing.
Vichuan Temple and BRA likes to work with Rafi to promote the culture to the people, and so that many people will know about and appreciate the culture of Cebu and the Philippines.
To me, Casa Gorordo is really the ultimate in the collection of artifacts, and it has touched the lives of so many people, the young and the old. Casa Gorordo is really the epitome of bringing together the love for culture and heritage.
As Rafi celebrates 50 years of being one of the premier NGOs in the Philippines, Casa Gorordo Museum opens its doors this time, as it learned from the experiences of the past to embrace the present and welcome the future. Casa Gorordo Museum continues to house the heart of the Cebuano as it beats into the 21st century.